Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Institute of Politics at the Harvard Kennedy School. My name is Anjali Krishnamurti, and I'm a junior at the college studying social studies and the co-chair of the IOP's John F. Kennedy Jr. Forum Committee. Tonight, I am personally honored to have the opportunity to introduce a woman who has served as a role model for me and so many of my peers who are young people here pursuing a life of tireless advocacy and meaningful public service. Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi is the Congresswoman from California's 11th District, having selflessly represented San Francisco for over 37 years. In 2007, she made history by being elected the first ever female Speaker of the House, leading two of the most consequential legislative terms in the recent American history. In 2024, President Biden awarded Speaker Emerita Pelosi the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. Her contributions to our democracy extend far beyond these trailblazing achievements. She has been a steadfast champion of working families and social justice throughout her distinguished career. And throughout her tenure, Speaker Emerita Pelosi has been really instrumental in advancing landmark healthcare reform, including the Affordable Care Act, and has been a really fierce advocate for climate action, LGBTQ+ rights, and women's reproductive freedom. Her passionate leadership during times of national crisis, from the 2008 financial collapse to the COVID-19 pandemic, has demonstrated her ability to build coalitions and deliver results for the American people. This conversation will be moderated by Alison King, who is an award-winning journalist with over 30 years of experience in the broadcasting industry. She spent most of her career covering politics in New England, including leading the local, state, and regional political coverage for 7 presidential elections, and interviewed every Republican and Democratic presidential candidate since 1996. King has won several awards for her reporting, including from the Emmys, Gracies, and the Associated Press. Please join me in giving an extra special warm welcome to our wonderful speakers.
Whoa, I'm using my... Okay, does this work? Yes, okay, great. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for joining us here at Harvard tonight. Pleasure to sit down with you. I just want to tell a quick story. A few years ago, someone gave me a photo that has been hanging on my bulletin board in my little office ever since. It's a picture of Nancy Pelosi at a White House meeting. I think it was around 2019, with dozens of congressional leaders and military officials surrounding a giant table. I believe everyone in the room, or practically everyone that I could see, was a male, except for the speaker, who was standing looking directly at Donald Trump with a raised finger. Now, I don't remember what was being argued or discussed at that meeting. For me, it's not about a particular political issue. I just think that that photo says so much about Nancy Pelosi and the confidence and fearlessness and leadership that she models for other women. It doesn't matter what your politics. I think many women from all kinds of political stripes can agree with me that you have been such an inspiring leader. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you very much, Alison, and thank you, Anjali, for your kind words introducing both of us. I'm honored to be with you once again and to be with all of you. Now, I see familiar faces from earlier, but just a few. It's great to be with all of you. Today, since I've come here earlier, we talked about trade in this room with the Ambassador Tai, who was the trade representative under President Biden. That was specific to trade, although there were some questions other than trade in the room. And then we had a conversation with some of your classmates about climate, a smaller group, because that's how they wanted it, so they could all be talking. And now we're here for a broader range of questions. Let me say why I'm so happy to see all of you and to hear Anjali talk about earlier about her aspirations to be a woman, possibly in politics, but certainly in government or in the public arena. There is nothing that is more of an antidote to any poison that is out there that you don't like than winning elections. You win, you rule, and you govern, and that's that. So if you are unhappy with anything, then you take action on it. But in order to do that, understand your power of it all. I've said so many to some of you in other meetings, if you, our inside maneuvering can only do so much. Our outside mobilization is what makes all good things happen because it springs from the people. So I hope in the course of this conversation, you all know your power in this, in whatever field you're in or whatever, knowing your power, knowing why you care about it, know what it is that moves you to act upon it, and that, especially to some of the women in the room, gentlemen, that it's so necessary. You're so needed in all of this. It doesn't mean women are better than men. It means we need the mix at the table, and that's the way it is. So I'd love to hear your, rather than going on, hear your questions about how you see things, and then I can put them in a perspective if you wish, or just hear more questions. Alison, thank you for honoring us with your presence, and I know you're as eager as I am to hear what the young people have to say.
Absolutely, and we are going to get to some student questions, a good chunk of them. I'm going to take the liberty of asking a few right off the top myself. And I want to start with the future of the Democrat. That's even better, isn't it? Yeah, the future of the Democratic Party. I can't really remember the party seeming to be so sort of rudderless since I started covering politics in the 1990s. If you ask a bunch of people who they think is the best Democrat to lead going forward, never mind perhaps be a presidential candidate, a Democratic candidate in 2028, you get a mishmash of answers, and at the end of the day, it's a sort of I don't have any idea. I'm wondering, tell me what you think the party stands for these days and why Democrats seem to be so scattered and sort of unenergized. There's certainly members of Congress who are taking it to the hilt and are everywhere and trying, but there's also a sense of this low energy among Democrats that they don't know where to go next. So, and I'm also wondering, first, if you can name 2 or 3 Democratic leaders who you think you're excited about, who you could see leading the party forward, maybe running in 2028. We're not holding you to anything, but that you're excited about.
Well, first of all, I completely disagree with your characterization of the Democratic Party. The way I see it from where we are, we have no power because they have the House and the Senate and the White House. And when you don't have power, you don't have leverage. If you don't have leverage, the press really doesn't cover you that much. Not to put it on to the press, you have to be more outstanding and outspoken and to get that attention. But every day I see remarkable, every single day we are out there in the trenches in our districts. And maybe it would be useful to explain one thing. We are the House of Representatives, so we have to win the House. We're not the presidential, we're the House of Representatives. So when I took my first leadership role in '06 as the first time as leader without a presidential race, Harry Reid, same thing, he was brand new. The two of us, we decided we were going to win, and we made a decision to win. Nobody knew who we were. Even our advisors would say, nobody knows who you are, but they know who President Bush is. But we made a decision to win, and we made every decision in favor of winning. You go into the areas that you have to win, you make your contrast, and then we won. It was the first time we had won since 1992. This was 2006. In 2018, we did the same thing. We had, the president said, I won't call him what's his name here at this academic place. He said, Obamacare sucks. That's what he said. We didn't think it sucked. We thought it cured. And we had 10,000 events around the country focused on the districts that we had to win. We won 40 seats, 31 of them in Trump districts. But nobody thought this is, it wasn't like a presidential. I'm too much of a politician to ever name 3 people when we have about 10 people who are running for president. So I'll name more than 3. There are so many who are out there. We have a great bench. But first, we have to win the House. When we won in 06, President Obama said, your victory is our path to the White House in 08. If we hadn't won that, gotten that gavel, set the agenda, we wouldn't get nobody would know what we were doing. Same thing in 18. 40 seats, 31 of them in Trump districts, and it was all about health care. The one in 06 was about the president wanting to privatize Social Security. I said, Mr. President, I hear you want to go to 23 cents. Now, we all, Democrats and Republicans, we had our differences, but we had our respect for each other. It wasn't like what's going on now. And I said, I'm going to treat you to 23 more cities. I think 23 is not enough. I want you to go to 46 cities for 46 days, and I'm going to have a welcoming committee for you to inoculate against what you're saying, to show the contrast between what we're advocating for Social Security and what you're advocating. And he said, what, Nancy, why do you keep saying I want to privatize Social Security? I just want to partially privatize Social Security. I said, it's good enough for me, Mr. President. First time we won since 1992. 1992, we won that election. The next time, as I said, we did this, but winning the House is about going into the districts that you know you can win, making the contrast. It isn't necessarily setting the world on fire. That comes next with the presidential. Now, there are many people who will campaign with us to win the House. In 06, it was, in 05 and 06, it was Obama and all the candidates for president. Same thing in 18. And now you will see many people come up. Many are governors. You see the governors of many states. If you see the governor of Illinois, you see the governor of Michigan, you see the governor of Pennsylvania. Shall I say their names? Shapiro and Pritzker and Whitmer and Gavin Newsom and governor of Kentucky, the magnificent Andy. We have so many great candidates, and some in the Congress and some in the Senate, and some maybe out of politics altogether. But there will be a lively debate. And I, again, disagree on, because I see the Democrats every day. You saw a march that was not political. And the value of it was that it wasn't political. No King's Day. It was spontaneous, organic, but everybody was there. And that's what's important, is what are the people thinking? What are they hopeful about? What are they willing to get out the vote for? Right now, I came here departing from our campaign in California, which is No 150. The president decided he wanted to get 5 seats in Texas, and so we had to get 5 seats in California. I don't like redistricting mid-decade. We have a commission form of redistricting, but if he's going to try to go for 5, then we'll go for 5. And as they said, well, that's 2 no's don't make a right. I said, that's not 2 no's make a right. His was wrong. He punched us in the face, and we punched him back. That's self-defense of democracy. That's what that is. So in our state, everything is pretty lively right now because of that. And that'll be over in 2 weeks, and then we'll get into showing how we're going to win the House with that first step. So I think that I hear what you're saying, and people say that. We have a great leader, Hakeem Jeffries. He will be the Speaker of the House. He will win. That's absolute. Take it. I'm not arrogant. I'm confident. We will win. He will. We only need 3 seats to win. I want 30. Somewhere between 3 and 30 is probably where we end up. But once we have that gavel and we have the ability to introduce legislation that can pass even the House, it won't pass the Senate because the filibuster rule, but nonetheless, connecting with the American people about what that is. So I want you to be more hopeful. I wear these bracelets, and now here's the next question. They say faith, hope, and love or charity. You have to believe in our country, believe in yourself, believe in God, believe in the system, in the goodness of others. You believe in the goodness of the American people, that if properly aware of what the choices are, they'll make the right decision. And people say to me, where is hope? I said, hope is where it always has been, sitting right there between faith, hope, and charity. And so we are alive. We are fighting the fight. We are going to have a big win in 2 weeks. And at the same time, we are recruiting, and some are self-recruiting great candidates for next time. But we are not conducting the presidential race right now. That's for people to advance, put themselves forward to do. And they're a beautiful bench to do it. Did I skip anybody? Does anybody have a suggestion on the presidential that I did not mention? Because they're plenty good. Andy Brashear of Kentucky, I started to say him before. He's fabulous. And they're all great, but it's a question of
About Nancy
who wants to
Pelosi.
do it. They asked me, why haven't you ever run for president? I said, you know what? I love being a legislator. I love being a legislator. And reason I was successful with my legislation, says she immodestly, is because a self-promotion sign is going up. Self-promotion is a terrible thing, but obviously somebody has to do it. The thing is that when I would ask members, if you were my the Democrats in the House and I asked you to vote a certain way, you want to know that that is a sincere request. Not, I want to be appointed an ambassador, I want to be in the cabinet, I want to run for Senate, I need you to vote this way for me. And the fact, that strength that I had, that they knew I just want them to follow their conscience, the Constitution, their constituents, and do the right thing for the people was part of my strength. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be running for president. Any of you in this room, especially the women, should be thinking about that as well.
Just following up on the redistricting, and I know that's a big sort of issue on your plate right now and what's going on in California, obviously. Do you see gerrymandering or redistricting, whatever you want to call it, righting itself at some point? Because I think it's one of the biggest problems facing the country right now, and I don't see it getting any.
Yeah, you do. We had a bill, our For the People Act. We passed it in the House again and again. We couldn't get 60 votes in the Senate. But Zoe Lofgren, who's the chair of our California Democrats, and in California we have 52 members of Congress. 43 are Democrats, 9 are Republicans, if that tells you anything about our state. But we have put this forth. It is about commission redistricting. And some states are reluctant to do it because they're saying, well, if I do it and the state next to me doesn't, then we're at a district. So we're saying everybody has to be commission redistricting. We're a commission redistrict in California. And what we have said with our Prop 50 is that, and Barack Obama has said this so beautifully in our ads, this is about going right back to commission redistricting. You got to get rid of the political redistricting. Our hero in all this is Eric Holder, who was the Attorney General, and we're about just draw the lines fairly, let the chips fall where they may, but at least have the people know that they are choosing their representatives. Their representatives are not choosing who they want to be their representatives. So no, I definitely see. And the more people know about it, and if there's any advantage to what's happening now is people know more about what the possibilities are. And when we put forth a bill for commission redistricting, which we have done again and again, hopefully some in the Senate will agree to that. Senators usually don't care about redistricting because it doesn't affect their race, but hopefully they'll join us.
Madam Speaker, do you agree with apparently a big swath of Americans, according to our last election, that Democrats pushed the country too far to the left, specifically on cultural issues, on immigration, on economic policy, or has that been overblown in a narrative that is not true?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think that we are a reflection of our country. You know, understand this isn't about anything coming from on high. It's about who we are. We are a beautiful, diverse country. And if they find that offensive with their DEI initiatives and they want to sell it as we're also left, it's ridiculous. You can't win. You can't really win from the left. I'm a left-wing San Francisco liberal, and I tell my constituents, you can't win from the left. You run from the center because that's where you're going to have to govern, from the center. But you can't get anything done unless you win. So it's no use saying, I wish it could all be this way, because the country's not all this way. But shall we say, I didn't know we were talking such politics tonight, so if they're charging that to us, I'll charge them back. The fact is they make up these stories about how can they be complaining if we want education for all of our children, whatever their ethnicity, or if they're newcomers to our country. How could they be complaining if they say that schools want to, every white person in this room, you're advantaged by every other person in this room because of the diversity that comes to. Our culture is about that. And let me just say it, because this goes to immigration, because that was the big issue. That's how they tied it on to immigration. I want you to Google Ronald Reagan, Republican president. This is the last speech I will make as president of the United States. Imagine that. You don't know this because you weren't born yet, but he was the great communicator. This is the last speech I will make as president of the United States. And he talks about the Statue of Liberty. And he talks about the beacon of hope that the Statue of Liberty is to draw people to our country, and that we are preeminent in the world because we have this beautiful diversity and just the exhilaration of newcomers coming. And because our door is open, we are a preeminent country in the world. And if we close the door, we will not continue to be preeminent. Just Google speech. I didn't do it justice. It's longer than that. I gave you the shorter version, believe it or not. So understand, that's who we are, and all of a sudden it's going to be this division in our country. This is our culture. They're undermining our culture in our country, in addition to not treating people with complete respect. So again, look, there's certain people in the country who don't want to see, I see it myself, of course, personally, because I'm a woman, but they don't want to see women, LGBTQ, people of color, immigrants taking their place in anything. And that's just the way it is. That's their problem. That's not America's problem. America is this great country with this beautiful diversity. And that is part of our fight. Oh, you're woke, or whatever they say it is. You're woke. What are we woke? We're talking about people. Now, I'm a Catholic, see, I got my Faith, Hope, and Charity here. And this is how I see things. When Christ came down from heaven and took part in our humanity, he enabled us to participate in his divinity. So as my former colleague John Lewis used to always say, and we all agree, there is a spark of divinity in every single person. And that spark of divinity is worthy of respect, and also a challenge to us for the spark that's in us to treat people, whether they're a newcomer, an immigrant, they're a homeless person on the street, whoever they are, we have an obligation to them. And just in case you believe this, the other part of it is, because you have that spark of divinity, make room for the angels who are preceding you, because they're angels who are preceding all of us, because we have this spark of divinity. So we respect everybody in our country. So for them to be saying what they're saying about people is like, and you're people of faith? You're people of faith? You go to church on Sunday and pray in church on Sunday and pray on people the rest of the week? What is this? what is this? So we have a lot of, shall we say, exuberances in our party, and I don't think we lost the election because we went too far. I think that I'm a former party chair. I know how to win elections. That's why I became speaker, because I won the elections. There's nothing great about me. I just won the elections in 2006. And the thing is that you just have to show, what is it? What is the policy? What are the politics? How are you going to get this done? And in the course of the time that I was active in all that, technology has changed. You have to leapfrog over the past and leapfrog over what they're doing and do better, because they really, I think, outdid us in the presidential race the last time. So we can relitigate every election as to who, why, and what, but the fact is we're going forward, and it's going to be with a realization that communication is different. You all agree. You know better than I. Communication is different, and if you don't recognize that, you're bound not to have public sentiment be on your side because you told people what it was.
So the government shutdown, you've been through a few shutdowns. Democrats have made it clear that healthcare is sort of the line in the sand. This has been some of your life work. Can you touch on why that is going to be a success?
Well, the issue is about affordability. That probably was one of the big issues in the last campaign in terms of affordability. When, for 100 years, presidents had tried to pass a health care bill. For 100, you have to put it in the context of 100 years. Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican president, first one who tried to do that. Then Franklin Roosevelt tried to do it with Social Security, but they couldn't do it. Truman almost did Medicare, but then it was done under Lyndon Johnson, all that. But nobody, and the Clintons tried it, and they didn't. When we had our chance, we said, we are going to do this. We had Barack Obama in the White House, who was not only an inspiration, but an aspiration for getting this done, a remarkable champion for it. And we had the majorities in the House and Senate, because we had won in 06 and then we won in 08. It was like there are three pillars: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act. This was our challenge to our generation, the Affordable Care Act. So we go through the whole thing. It was tough because we had everything against us. Big money that doesn't like to see government do anything. They don't want to pay any taxes, and they don't want any regulation, and they don't want any requirements. So we had the big money against us. We had so many things against us, but we were determined to win. Here in Massachusetts, Senator Kennedy passes away, who had been a champion for healthcare. He'd been a champion his whole life. And so then then we had a replacement for a while, but then there was an election and we lost. So we no longer had 60 votes in the Senate. So the press said to me, "You're a loser. You're not going to win anything because you don't have 60 votes." And I said, we are not going to miss this opportunity of a generation to pass the Affordable Care Act. Well, how are you going to do it? I said, well, if it's anything that stands in our way, we'll push open the gate. If that doesn't work, we'll climb the fence. If that doesn't work, we'll pole vault in. If that doesn't work, we'll parachute in. But we're not letting anything stand in the way. We have decided, and that's it. So after it was over, they said, which one did you do? I said, we just pushed open the gate. I get back to my first point. Because the people, the diagnosis groups, cancer, you name any subject, they were all with us. Of course, the courage of my members, they were spectacular, because everything we ever did was because of the courage of the members. But we had the grassroots people helping us push open that gate. And I always say when I talk about this, thank God for the nuns, Catholic that I am. Thank God for the nuns, because the bishops were terrible. They were terrible. They were terrible. They didn't even know what they were talking about. But the nuns were there, and that enabled many of our Catholic members to feel comfortable. We had nothing in there about abortion, but Republicans were spreading that we had and we didn't. So, okay, so now they're going to try 70 times they try to take it down. The Republicans, 70 times. And they're saying now, oh, we just want to make improvements. Oh, really? 70 times you try to take it down. And we had to save it in 18, 10,000 events around the country for people to speak. Well, my wife had breast cancer, or somebody else, my baby was born with heart disease, or somebody else, my father had a stroke, my brother has a disability, whatever it is, 10,000 events. So again, know your power. It's what happens out there that matters inside. And so, so now they're, and of course they lost, and thank God for John McCain, but in the meantime, we kept it all alive and won 40 seats so that we were in power to sustain it. And then he did that thumbs down heard round the world. But so now they're putting in their bill that they want us to vote for. They want us to vote for taking millions of people off of Medicaid, $500 billion out of Medicare, and increasing by 2 or 3 times the cost of healthcare policies for America's working families. You want us to go vote for that bill to open up government? You must be crazy. And I direct that at one person in particular. So the thing is that there's no way, unless they open up government, and we can discuss what changes they may want to have, this or that, but there's no way that we're voting for they called it beautiful, their stinking, lousy, rotten bill. So that, what, we're going to open up governments at the same time, increase prices, eliminate, I said already what it is. So that's what this is. It really actually is a Epstein shutdown. They don't want to open up the Congress because we now have the 218th vote to release the documents. So that's what's going on here as well. Sad to say, but true. So again, last time when there was another picture here this morning of, you saw it, when I was coming out of his office in my red coat, where he said, I'm proud to shut down government. What's his name? I'm proud to shut down government. 35 days he kept it shut down. We'll see how long they can protect him from Epstein files.
All right. Well, listen, I have so many questions, but I
answered
I
too
could talk
long.
to you all. No, you were wonderful. I could talk to you all night about this, but I want to go to the student questions. So why don't you raise your hand, and we'll start with you in the last row because you had your hand up first,
Have one here.
and say your name and go for it.
She was in the other meeting, and she had a question in the other meeting.
My name's Zara. It's so wonderful to meet you and
I can hear.
today. I did have a question about one of the questions that actually brought up about gerrymandering. So I was wondering, why should voters trust the Democratic Party to gerrymander their state when they feel like their interests are being less prioritized than those of the donor class by that same party? Is it not dangerous to strip Americans of their democratic freedoms to fight fascism? Is this not just setting a mandate to make America into a less democratic country as a way for one party to win over the other?
So you're charging us because we are responding to their gerrymander of Texas of undermining our democracy?
But I think that but one of my concerns is, I think if that's the only response that we're making towards the Republican Party, it's just going to create a cycle in which you're just continually.
But I think you're right. We shouldn't have this. And we said if they take theirs back, we will take ours off because we don't really want to do this. Your concern is well placed that we shouldn't be doing this. I agree. But if they're going to do it, we cannot unilaterally disarm when everything is at stake in our country. Our democracy, the independence of the judiciary, witness the Supreme Court, due process, free and fair elections, the genius of the Constitution, which is separate branches of government, 3 separate branches of government. So when they do that, we are responding to protect our democracy. But the way you protect democracy is not by having this conversation. You protect democracy at the kitchen table. You protect democracy by lowering cost of healthcare, and that's what our fight is here in lowering costs. So again, when people say, well, how come you're not all out there talking about the Constitution? Well, we were in the last election. But people, whether they don't think that that is really a threat or not is one thing. But the fact is, they know that we have to lower cost, and healthcare is one big place because that's one of the biggest costs that they will have, single or double or triple cost to what they're paying now. You had a question? I think there's this gentleman over here.
Hello again, Madam Speaker. Thank you for your time. Obviously, tensions in the country are very high, both with political violence and ideological polarization. What have you done, both in your role as Speaker and outside of it, to promote bipartisanship in Congress so that our government and the country as a whole can function as it's supposed to?
Well, this is a relatively new phenomenon in Congress a long time, and we really didn't have. We had our disagreements. What is the role of government and what is the budget? Because that's the big debate: is what is the budget and if it should be a statement of our values. And we have differences of opinion. So it's always been that way. It's only recently what's happening on the other side that has made it that way. But you know what I think will save us? The arts. The young people, what gives me hope are the young people, because you will demand something more. And what we're hearing from you, and tell me if it's something different from you, what we're hearing from you is about the climate crisis, this planet. It's about the cost of living. It's about the availability of jobs. It's affordability of housing. It's LGBTQ and women's right to choose, personal freedoms like that. It's gun violence. That's what we're hearing mostly from young people. You may want to toss something else in. But in addition to that, from a cultural standpoint, as we talked earlier, I think that we really have to find our common ground. What is it? And if we have a difference of opinion and we go to a concert or we see a painting, we go to a play, you read a book, and you agree on something that you never thought you would agree on. You didn't even know you had common ground, but you do. And it's a place to go to spring from. So that's what we're trying to just say. I work with the Republicans and for decades on issues that relate to human rights, all of religious freedom. We have many things that we do together that are not as conspicuous as some of the fights that are there. But you have a responsibility to find as much common ground as you can, maintain those friendships, and also have transparency so the American people can see what the difference is. And that has an impact of perhaps bringing people together if they want to be accountable. And that's the third part of it, accountability to the American people. But understand this, there's something very different that is going on now than the difference between Democrats and Republicans. And the only way to take us to a better place is just win, baby. That's the thing. You just have to win the election. So you have leverage with them. Right now, they're afraid of the president. These people who are, so many people we worked with over the years are afraid of the president, so they only vote one way. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news if that hasn't been so obvious. But the fact is that some of them want to be as liberated as we want them to be liberated. What's another thing? You decide.
How about right here?
Thank you. My name is Jonah. I'm from 10th District of Illinois, Brad Schneider's district.
Where are you from?
Illinois 10th District, Congressman Brad Schneider.
Wonderful.
I wanted to ask, there's obviously New York's mayoral elections coming up.
Yeah.
And there's a very exciting Democratic candidate there with Zoran Mondani. But a lot of the leadership of the party has been pretty hesitant to endorse him, has not really seen him as like a very popular alternative for the party to kind of get behind. What role do you see kind of the central leadership of the party having in choosing candidates, in kind of determining primaries, and deciding who the voters should get behind?
Well, it's up to the people, and the people of New York will decide who's going to be their mayor. You mentioned that some of the leadership in New York has decided so far, I don't know if that's the end of it, so far that they have not endorsed the candidate. Some people think it's because that candidacy in other districts around the country would not be helpful to win the House or the Senate. I was that candidate for many years. They demonized me so much that somebody came in my house and banged my husband over the head because of the demonization that the Republicans did to me. And so I don't take any, I didn't even endorse in my own district in San Francisco. I didn't even endorse for mayor. It's up to the people, that's where it is. What Senator Schumer and Hakeem do in New York is really up to them. I don't think that a person, I mean, speaking for myself, because I was the target then as the left-wing San Francisco liberal, not anything to this extent, though, in New York, because it has Israel and all other kinds of ramifications. But people really want to know, if you're running for Congress, and you're the opponent, what does your candidacy mean to me? Not did the person who supports you endorse the mayor of New York? And, I think that the Republicans will tattoo him on everybody. But I think that almost insults the voter, because the voter wants to know what it means in their lives, not what it means in the Bronx or the Queens or Brooklyn or Staten Island or, Manhattan. So I don't know if they will endorse. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because I really do think that the other side can try to slam a person on you. But that's what they did to me. Because I had to raise the money to give to the candidates to say they would vote against me for speaker because I was described as this left-wing thing. And I was funding the opposition to myself, but I just wanted to win, baby. I didn't care what they said.
All right, how about second row?
More women, the better. Yes.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm Megan. I'm from Minnesota, actually. But what I wanted to say, I think you're on campus at a very contentious time for the university, especially as we're approaching a hypothetical deal with the Trump administration. There's been a lot of rumors of that. As a member of Congress, you know how important the connection between federal government and universities is. I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to that a little bit, especially as, I know Trump offered a deal to 9 universities, trying to get them to take some kind of compact as well. I'm just interested what your thoughts are between that connection between the federal government and the university.
Okay. Well, thank you for that question. For a long time in Congress, I was an appropriator. And I was happy as I could be as an appropriator and on the Intelligence Committee. Then people said, you have to run for leadership. You have to run. So I have value with that. Democrats and Republicans working together on the Appropriations Committee can resolve the issues. They know what's at stake. They know how to respect each other's judgment on certain things and the rest. And I did believe when I was there on that committee that the best dollar that the federal government spends is on the investments in biomedical research, the National Institutes of Health, the money that goes to the universities extramurally outside of Washington, D.C. for research. This is about the health and well-being of the American people. And for the administration to cut off those funds, I just don't get that. Why? To give a tax break to the wealthiest people in America. That's why they're doing Medicaid. That's why they're doing Medicare. That's why they're doing Affordable Care Act. And that's why they're doing this funding, cutting off this funding. So I myself find myself a little more sympathetic to the universities who have said, just no, baby, I'm not going there. And you see what they're exacting on some of these schools. You see what they're exacting? Read the list. It's a stunning list of things in terms of teachers and academics and culture and all the rest. I don't know what they're doing here. I don't know what it came to at Harvard, but they put Harvard to a particular test because of the excellence and the history, and the rest of that. And that was, I thought, unfair. I thought the leadership here handled it very well, but they shouldn't have had to. And you would think there'd be some reaction from the American people to say, you can't say this, that this is who you can admit, who can people teach, what words can they use? I mean, really? Really? So again, I would say universities have to make their own decision. I respect that. But understand this also, that when we take away that funding for that biomedical research and the other scientific research from these best minds in these universities, we're doing a grave disservice to our country. And I'm very sad about that. And that's another reason that we want to win the election, so that we can reverse a great deal of that. The best dollar, the biblical power to cure. Forget about it. Next.
Okay, how about,
Thank you so much, obviously, for being here, Speaker Pelosi. I want to go back to something you were talking about earlier, which is obviously you campaigned both of the times that you won the House. You were dealing with an unpopular president. A lot of the message you dealt with, sort of the faults of that presidency and delivering for the American people. But you also talk a lot about the positive agenda that Democrats have to offer in terms of affordability, healthcare, and so forth. So I'm wondering a little bit about how you find the balance between communicating the positive agenda that you have and attacking the incumbent administration or the opposition. Like, how do you get your message across to the American people? How does that play into the campaign, into candidate selection, so on and so forth?
Well, I'm a big believer in what you said first. That is, the American people want to know why you should vote for them. That's really what it is. If the other side decides that they're going to mischaracterize you and the rest, you have to respond to it. But really, don't give them, don't do it. Just what is it that you present? And that's really, I think, where the focus has to be. Affordability is very important. I consider housing a health issue. So affordability of health and housing, jobs, protecting the environment, the air our children breathe, the water they drink, or my grandchildren, children breathe. All of those things. Just have the confidence of this is what we're out there to do. And for us, it's a little different because we're trying to unseat somebody. So if you voted to get rid of Medicaid and Medicare and SNAP, supplemental nutrition, the food program, we're going to make sure your constituents know that. So that's not negative, it's just comparative. That's just comparative. I don't think anybody has to tell anybody why they shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. I mean, if they don't know that by now, but forget that. This is about what is there for them. Something so exuberant, something that gives people hope that this is not just a list of items, it's a value statement. It's about the culture of America. It's about our Constitution and all that, but it springs from the kitchen table if you want to win. So I'm not a big negative person, except in the terms of contract. That you voted for this, I'll vote for that. That's a legitimate thing in a congressional race. It doesn't really have the same value in a presidential. It's a different thing. You're running for president of the United States. I don't think anybody, I mean, if people, when we have a presidential race, when Obama ran, I mean, it was something for the future. And that's what people want to see, something for the future. I don't think it should be talking about, you know what I'm saying, without my saying.
Madam Speaker, I think we have time for one more question.
Okay, who's that going to
Okay,
be?
how about red shirt?
Where's
Hi.
Richard?
Thank you for being
Oh,
with us.
hi.
My
Hi.
name is Anika. I'm a sophomore at the college from South Carolina. a lot of young people
Yeah.
who might not have voted in the election or might have voted one way or another, but no longer feel like their interests are being represented. And I think what I'm hearing from a lot of young folks in particular is that they don't see themselves and their issues being represented in either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party right now. So I'm wondering what obligation you think our party leadership has to representing more young people within the party ranks and supporting them, as well as passing the torch when the time may come.
What you're reminding me of the election last year. What we were bringing back to on a presidential, they don't really necessarily care what the House is telling. They're the presidential. So you have to say, this is what our members are hearing. Put that into your consideration, because they make their own decision. And what we were telling them is, and this is stunning to me, that young people didn't even want to vote. One of my friends, I was chair of the party way back when, before I went to Congress, and she was chair of a party in one of the states, and she said, and I've known her little boys since they were little boys, I have 3 sons, as you know. I'd be lucky if I could get one of them to vote. She was the chair of the Democratic Party in the state. And in her own family, there was just no enthusiasm for voting. We reported all, not just that, that's anecdotal, and we always say the plural of anecdote is not data, but we had a lot more anecdotal information about how young people were not voting. This is the most discouraging thing, because elections are about the future, and the future belongs to you. And so the first thing we always just say about that is you have to listen to young people. We had a group of our youngest members who went around all over the country, academics, yes, but farmland, just every place, listening, and coming back with what they thought. But at the end of the day, young people vote with their they'll say, oh, these Hispanics, they don't vote. I said, no, they vote with their generation. They don't vote with their parents. They're young, and young people are not voting. So think of it that way. And what are the things? And actually, what emerged last time, and you correct me if you see things differently as we go forward, was affordability. It really came down to, we talk about climate, we talk about gun violence, we talk about LGBTQ, we talk about all those things. But the thing that was most salient was, what is anybody doing about affordability? Can I buy a house? Can I have my health care? Can I have a job, a good paying job? So actually, what we were hearing were the same issues that affected them and their families, with others too, like climate and stuff that their family might not be interested in. But affordability was what we were hearing so much. You're in college, you're going to graduate, are you going to be able to get a job? Are you going to be able to buy a house or afford your rent and things like that? Not very much different from somebody 10 years older. How do you see things? What would you say would be the most important issue?
Well, I certainly think affordability is huge, and I think the other issues you mentioned matter a lot to young people, but I think a lot of times it is getting a job and finding affordable housing. And I think a lot of times the way to represent that for folks back home that I talk to is seeing people that look like them, that are similar to their age or their background, also running for office and being supported and being represented within the party.
Yeah. Well, that happens to be a part of it. But I do also believe that the understanding of how important people running for office is. And it's know your power. Again, I'll come back to knowing your power in this. On women, especially, forgive me, gentlemen, as I said, it's no offense to the men. It's just we want everybody represented at the table. We want everybody represented at the table. And so have confidence about going forward and helping each other, perhaps run. There's a person who this room is named for, Malcolm Weiner. He's a great guy, a big supporter of Harvard and the room we're in, and I know him very well. And he has young children, well, young children your age. I don't mean little. I mean, yeah. And the whole thing is about the future belonging to you. So, but you have to take responsibility for it as well. And yes, we want to have more new young people in Congress, and we encourage them to run. I've raised billions of dollars for young people to run for office if they decide they have the courage to do that. But it's tough, and we don't want it to be that tough, and we don't be that rough. You know, we're just saying, because people say to me, I could never run for office because I could never have my family be subjected to what you have been subjected. And this is before my husband was in, just the negativity on TV and stuff like that. Kids coming home from school crying because somebody in school heard some bad thing about their mom who's running for office. And so let's get rid of that. What's that about? Just get rid of that. But to do it, we just have to make a decision that we're going to have all this youth and vitality and all the rest come forward and embrace the future. Running is tough. It's not for the faint of heart. So I always say to people, know your why. Know why you are running. Because if you know why, you can take all the hits. It doesn't, you know why. My why is the 1 in 5 children in America who lived in poverty. Go to sleep hungry at night. How could this be? So my goal was to have public policy that address those concerns, and it continues to be a challenge. What are the 3 most important issues facing the Congress? Our children, their health, their education, the economic security of their families, a safe environment in which they can thrive, including safety from gun violence, a world at peace in which they can reach their fulfillment. But again, it takes courage to run, and you have to make a decision. So it's good to have friends to embrace, or maybe you have a buddy system and one runs and the other helps out. Know your power, use your power, know your why. Excuse me. And understand that when women succeed, America succeeds. This is very, very important. But again, no offense to the gentleman. Yes, we want everybody at the table, men and women, diversity in our country, no matter what they're saying about DEI. We want that diversity at the table. So when people see something, what we try to do is encourage many young women to run, so young women, young moms could see somebody who looked like them, was sharing their experience, making those decisions. And we have. When I went to Congress, there were 23 women, 435 members of Congress, 23 women. So what is that? 220 or something. 420 men. So me being a former member of chair of the party, being a political person, I said, we're not going to stand for this. Now we have just under 100 Democratic women, and they have about 30 something. They're doing better. We want them to do better too. We want more women on both sides of the aisle. But again, it's a decision to run, a decision to allocate resources, it's a decision to listen to how they want things prevented. Everything we did, we listened to the people, and they formulated the vocabulary almost. This works better. People understand this better than using some Washington terminology. So again, know your power and the rest. Know your why. Use your power in furtherance of your why. And a leader is somebody who has a vision about our country, knowledge, and that's their why. Knowledge. What is it that draws you into supporting that image? How are you going to get this done? How are you going to attract other people sharing your point of view, but deciding you are the one? Vision, knowledge, strategy, and then show them what is in your heart, the most important part, what is in your heart. So
Well,
thank you.
Well, that's a beautiful note to
Thank you for
end
all
on.
of that, and as I say, faith, hope, and charity. That's what gives us hope. But just that 3 points again. When you show them what is in your heart, that is the most authentic you. In the history of the world, there's been nobody like you. In the history of the whole world, nobody like you. You are the authentic, original you. And when they see that authenticity, and you know better than I, young people like authenticity. When they see that authenticity and they know that you are bringing something very unique and special to it all, that attracts support. And again, you're on your way to the leadership role should you choose to go that way. But I thank you all for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you. And I want to thank Malcolm Weiner again for his hospitality in this room. And let's thank Alison for keeping us all under control.
Madam Speaker. Thank you all for being here. Have a great night.